Hello, sweet friends, and welcome to the way through. Oh my gosh, I am so grateful to have you here, a part of today's conversation. And of course, more importantly, this is a new season of the way through. It marks there's 1 year already. I cannot believe how quickly time has gone by, but I'm excited to be here to continue our conversations and welcome you, of course, each and every week. And hopefully, there's something that I share on these episodes that are really helping you to find your way through whatever challenges or is coming, whatever's coming up for you in your life. Last season, I really took us through some of the key components of what we need to consider when we are moving forward on our healing journeys, things that cannot be overlooked, or helping to bring some other understanding to what's kind of going on in the undercurrent of our subconscious, where our inherited conditioning is affecting us, what paradigms we're operating in, and of course, taking steps to move forward through some of those challenges and the highs and lows within the emotional current of what takes place as we journey through our healing. Now, this season, we're still going to be bringing in those components. There's still reflections and conversations around that, but we're really shifting it now to more specifics in taking a more empowered approach, because now, based on our conversations previously, you already have a really good understanding of what sits within our story, what's operating within the human condition of self, at that ego point of view, or we could say at the linear aspect of our relationship with life. And so now we're able to really move into diving in a little bit deeper from an understanding of where, from moving from healing and growth and understanding, we venture more into the energetics, the shifting of those beliefs, the alteration, so to speak, of the paradigms, and our role really in manifesting our life now beyond the past. So we're really taking what has been the scope of our suffering having the power, and that's really, within, when we look at those linear conversations that we shared last year, really helping to define what that looks like from the ego, from the wounded self, the struggles and challenges we have, and what's kind of going on behind the scenes. But now I'm so excited because we get to move the conversations into taking what has been the power of being held within the suffering aspect of self, of the low self, and bringing it in, or moving our conversations now to moving you into your own power, into your own magic, in your capacity and your abilities to alchemize whatever has happened to you in the past. So it really is putting you into the driver's seat of your life in a much more grounded, embodied kind of scope. This doesn't mean you're not still moving through all of the stuff that happened. Those challenges are still going to come up. There's still layers upon layers that need to be understood and felt and moved through in support of your ability to not only just experience greater joy and ease in your life, but so that your life can dramatically shift towards what it is that you've been hoping, beyond hoping. Now we're going to go beyond hoping, but really from going from this place of where you've been hoping it to go, praying for it to go, wishing it to go, so that it can come into a more grounded and experienced way of living and being in your life. So I'm excited because it really, takes us into, as I said, deeper conversations. I still have some really amazing guests coming up on the show. We're still going to be talking about trauma, about our woundedness, about these very real things that happen to us and how they impact us, and bringing in more of this empowered approach so that you've got everything you need to continue on your healing journey. There's so much that it's changed within the scope of life as we know it. We can, simply look at what the last 3 months have brought us, what the last, 7 months have brought brought us. We're already, over that midway point of this year. So we can look back and go, wow, there's been a lot of shifts and changes. There's been a lot of what feels like obstacles or feeling powerlessness within our lives or within society, within the world. And so I believe that these kinds of conversations now are really what are going to help to give us all what we require and need to move through what the shake up and shake out, we can say, of some of the low frequencies or low life experiences that maybe we've been participating in, and coming into a higher not just personal vibration, but a higher experience of life, so that we're less conflicted, less challenged, less, let's say, energetically affected by the way of the external world, because we've got everything right in our inner world. Everything right and balanced and grounded and just in sync with something greater than the external world, or what, the lack and the fear and the consciousness of that suffering. So I'm so grateful for you. I'm so excited. I know I've been rambling within the introduction for today's show, but I just really wanted to set what is the pulse and theme as we're moving forward, especially if you're someone who's been already tuning into the show. I wanted to give you some insight of what you can look forward to. And of course, if you're someone who is just tuning in for the very first time, welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you here, and also really encourage you to go back and go through the archives and the library of the previous shows, so you can get a really good solid foundation for our conversations, and some of those things that can hook you and come out of the woodwork when sometimes you least expect it, because that's really what we understand when we look at it from the experiences of our very human self. So we move into today's conversation is one of the beginning points of this, where we move now into taking a look at taking a look at what true empowerment is. So we're really going from what is the woundedness of this little one. I always like to call it our little one, this low ego, this one who's been hurt, the one that's been victimized, the one that's been abandoned, the one that feels has experienced great loss, the one that struggles to know where he or she is in the scheme of their own lives, that one who has been abused, or maybe even is in a state of really kind of suffering within in the scope of those very real emotional states that we go through, the despair, the depressions, the anxieties. I mean, our world is permeating with all of that right now. But here's the thing, we don't need to fall into that experience of our lives, because we can, in understanding where our true empowerment comes from, we, can really alter and shift so much. So, when we think of the word empowerment, I mean, this has been a word that's been really buzzing around through our society. I mean, there's a lot of cliches about it, these promises of maybe, being more empowered, being more, taking your place in the world, having your voice, and all of that's very real. But I think what happens over time, that becomes, we use that word so much that it gets diluted. It doesn't have what is the potency of what sits behind the word in helping us to really transform our lives, but instead creates more of a mental understanding. It's a societal label, and that causes us from this being disconnected in terms of something more deeply personal, that energetic awakening of what is our true divine nature. And that's what requires us, where we need to be in this place of honoring what's happened, being real about how we feel, what's going on, the scope of the impact of what our experiences had on us. We cannot spiritually bypass this. And if you've been tuning into my show, that's really what year one was all about, is to not put on the rose-colored glasses, not get caught up in believing that if we just think positive, that everything's going to be okay, or that if we just shift in terms of not allowing our past to define us. If we ignore it, suppress it, pretend it away, then maybe it didn't happen. And unfortunately, that's not how it works, because as we move forward in life, eventually, mentally, emotionally, even physically, what has been suppressed within us begins to create a disintegration. And so we have to look at, okay, what's there? We have to be real about what's there. But we also have to understand that there's so much more available to us. There's so much more available when in navigating our wounds and being able to unravel all of the inherited conditioning in everything that, yes, we have these deep emotional scars. There are karmic burdens. There are, we've even inherited trauma, not just from what we've directly experienced, but we could look at it from a familial point of view. What's been passed down through generations, what we've accumulated in this lifetime. And so we can really fall into where we look at this part of us, or this idea or identity that we have of ourselves, the identity of the ego, that in some way has created this narrative of brokenness, of inadequacy, of unworthiness. And it's caused us to believe that we're deficient, we're unworthy of love, we're disconnected from our power. So even the word empowerment sounds like, oh, it's a great idea, the mind says, but we're not in the full experience or the embodiment of what that represents and means for us. And so that woundedness, that place, just know it's not a flaw. It's a part of the journey. It's a necessary chapter that actually is the catalyst that pushes us into consider things deeper, to look at what we need to heal, and begin to ask the universe, or even ask ourselves, what we believe in and what's true and what's right, and really making a decision that we don't want to live in that state of suffering anymore. And that's really where, in that decision, where everything changes. It's, you might have heard people saying, happiness is a choice. Happiness is not a choice, in the sense it's a decision to be happy, and then making choices that will take you into experiences and how your perspective or direction of life begins to change, simply because you are now making choices that align with that decision to be happy. Okay, so that's a whole other conversation for another show. I want to make sure that I'm keeping it real and focused here with you today. But I really want you to know that those paradigms, everything that equates to us needing to suppress and deny, become a dominating force, really. And we're told to be strong, right? I think this is, again, if when the conversation around authentic resilience, where I really encourage you to go back and listen to that show, because this isn't about just being strong. It's not just about having courage. It's about, it's not being able just to pull up our socks and keep going. We have to look at recognizing the wounds are actually not our identity. We've been convinced that they're our identity, but they are merely stories, or we could say are energetic patterns that are within us and around us that are forming those experiences of life. So when we consider this from that diluted word of empowerment, it's lost its depth. When we look at it in terms of the ways that it's been used in terms of marketing or creating superficial goals that really lack any real substance. But true empowerment, it's not a tool. It's not something we convince ourselves that we are empowered. It's something that, moves us from going from a place of what is external control or a temporary sense of confidence, and moves us into something more rooted, not in the ego, but rooted in our divine essence, where we stop we do this illusion of the ego, this low state of that little one that's within all of us. We forget that our strength, that our ability to heal, that our joy, that our prosperity, all of it comes from being in alignment. But the wounded self, that little one, is has these perpetuating feelings of scarcity, of separation, and we chase after this illusion of empowerment, and we're not really in our most empowered state. So this is big. This is, again, for someone who has been in this empowerment world for, oh my gosh, since the beginning of my business, looking at, in women's empowerment, what it means to be empowered. I can see even for myself how the knowledge of that place of empowerment really was more in the illusionary scope of what empowerment meant from a linear or logical point of view, as opposed to where I sit now in what is, has moved beyond the mind and in a place of this embodied, this actualization, this expression of the empowerment that comes from the state of trueness, of alignment, of connection, that allows for the greatest expression, for the potentials, for things to begin to really dramatically shift. Now, it didn't happen overnight. As you can just look back. I've been in business for over, oh my gosh, 16, almost 17 years already. And so when I look back to the state of where I was in terms of understanding empowerment at that time, to what I realize and understand in this empowered state of worthiness, this empowered state of expression of my own self, of that self that not based on the ego self, the one of that little identity, but the identity of what is this intentional self that is beyond and more connected to this divine power, or this state of true empowerment. So when we look at here, this genuine empowerment really is what lies beyond those mental concepts. And it resides in the energetics, the subtle vibrational states and aspects of our beingness. And that's really our true power, is connected to our ability to move through all the layers of suffering, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual scope of it all, even the physical suffering, without identifying it in terms of suffering, but instead of reclaiming what is this sovereignty over our energy field, over the energy that we are being in any given moment. And that requires a shift. It requires us to be able to take action, not in terms of just writing out affirmations or, and I don't want to discredit any of that, because as you know, you've been tuning in, or maybe you've worked with me as a coach, as a healer, as part of my mediumship community. You know that, those affirmations and being able to tap into a higher state of consciousness within ourselves is a big part of the process. So I don't ever want to dissuade you from losing affirmations, but it becomes what state are you working those affirmations from? Are you based, from a low aspect of identity, or from a place of coming into and moving into more of a state of, we could say, higher self expression? Affirmations help us to get into alignment with our higher self, but when we work them from this other energy, that's really when things begin to shift and change. So I don't want to discredit, as I said, those affirmations, but it really is here instead what is allowing us to tap into our higher power, whatever name you call it, whether it is God, source, creator. I believe in all of that and so much more. So it really, it might be divine love, it might be universal mind, whatever concept or idea that it represents for you. Even, I can tell you, even if you don't believe in a higher power, you are the higher power. You are the creator. It really is you are the expression of whatever that is. You wouldn't be on this earth if you weren't. So here again, when we look at it, it's really becomes this depth of understanding of the I am that goes beyond the ego. And that's really what's identified really more, what's rooted in a scope of what we could say is pure consciousness of love, the pure consciousness of infinite potential. But it is in this deeper connection when we can look at not from coming in, where our wounded ego, those emotional stories sit there. They sit there and they've had purpose. And we, again, in our suffering state, it can be impossible to recognize, what purpose does this hold for me? This is terrible. This sucks. I don't want to go through this. This happens to me over and over again. I mean, it can just we feel helpless and hopeless. And it's just like, man, we just want to throw in the towel. And I say we because I've been there. I've been there with this urgency of needing to, to be so lost, so disconnected, so feeling in such a state of despair. I just wanted out. I just wanted out of this life. I wanted out of the suffering. And at that time it was, okay, I just need to end the physical life. But I'm here to tell you, you don't need to end your physical life, that you have this life. You are life itself. And so because of that, you're not just here doing life, you are being life. Life isn't something that you are living through. You are the experience of this life. And so being able to look at, you don't need out of the physical life in order to change things. You just need to understand who you really are and what exists within you that is beyond this idea of, and this definition of a diluted sense of empowerment, so that you can shift into this true empowerment, this place that goes, from that woundedness. And again, those experiences we have, as deep and heart-wrenching and difficult that it can be, and what we can be going through for, like, not just a short period of time, but what can seem to be monopolizing all of our life. I mean, it's real, it's raw, it sucks. But here, just recognizing that too is from this state of connection, from this scope of really tapping in, and in from a place of more embodied self, this divine essence that you are, that I am, that we move into this, that we can understand it more of a temporary experience. There's things we need to heal up, clean up, clear out of our system, our emotional system, our energetic system, so that, instead of being inhabited by this inhuman experience, that we move into going, oh, this was all perfectly designed. Oh, this was all a part of my awakening. Oh, all these bad things needed to happen so that I could understand my own power, my own light, my own authority, that I could, create what was more of a very intentional way of existence, which is a big part of what our purpose is all about. And I know so many people have had a million conversations about this over the years, about what's my purpose. And our purpose really is to understand that we need to move beyond what is the illusion, what are the constraints or the states of our suffering, from a place of lack into moving into this more abundant state of existence, with what comes from our ability to move from what is the identity based on the ego, who I am, what's happened to me, what I've been living through, what's affected me, what's negatively impacted me, and moving beyond that into more of this intentional self, that has the desire, the intentional self that is looking to make conscious choices about how we're showing up in our lives, versus letting life kind of, lead the experience. Or we could say letting our ego lead the experience of life, instead of life itself taking us through our experiences from a more empowered place of being. And that's ultimately what this is all about. So, all of those things that happened, this is about saying to you, yes, it sucked. I honor you. I am just deeply, deeply pained by the suffering in our world of what's happening, these terrible things that are going on, and the effects that it's happening on us as a people, us as humanity. There's a shared experience that's happening. And so I don't ever want to overlook that. This is not about rose-colored glasses. This is not about just being positive. This is about saying to you, yes, we need to recognize this, but we also need to recognize it when we can from an elevated vantage point where we can begin to witness our trauma, our hardships, the limitations, whether those be ours or what's happening in the world, as purposeful aspects of our evolution, of purposeful aspects of our ability to understand our own power, light, and authority beyond those layers of conditioning, beyond the false identities, so that we can recognize suffering as, let's say, a teacher or a doorway for us to move towards a place of greater love, greater compassion, greater expression of what is the inner truth. Okay, so true empowerment begins to take form when we begin to acknowledge our own divinity, our own understanding of self beyond the identity that has been maybe created, or who we've believed ourselves to be, or who we've even been defined by others to be. It is true empowerment really emerges when we begin to understand who we are at the deeper level, not the superficial scope of self-esteem, but recognizing again our inherent divine nature, and how aligning with source energy, with the source of creation, with your God, your source, your higher power, the divine. From that energy that flows, where we look at, that's what flows through all of creation. And so we look at understanding this from this place that we don't need to control our circumstances. We don't need to seek validation. We don't need other people to help us to feel confident, or to really tell us that we're lovable or that we're supported. We don't need other people to say, hey, you're worthy of success, or hey, I want to recognize you for how good you look. Or we're not looking to other people seeking compliments and external recognition. Instead, we've moved to this place of what is a shift from a place of within a higher state of consciousness. Not when we look at a higher state of consciousness again of external, but an internal place of this higher state of consciousness that really responds to life from this loving, empowered state. So when we look at this ripple effect that happens now from true empowerment, which is really our divine self embodied, our true empowerment is in our divine alignment, is in our most embodied state of what is divine and beautiful and worthy about us. Then it's from this state that life really begins to shift. Reality has to begin to match what's going on inside of us, because we are the energy of what's being created. We are what is magnetizing the experiences that we're having in our life. So we have to look at, okay, how do we begin to understand ourselves, and how do we begin to live in terms of our daily life, our moment to moment experiences? What are we choosing? Are we doing this from, our little one who is hurt and wounded and feels like nobody's going to understand? There's no way through. My life is always going to be this way. Good things always happen to other people. All of those states of that have been conditioned inside of us, conditioned even from our own experiences. This isn't just about what we've inherited, what sits within the familial experience of life, or what's happened in our past lives. All of that matters. All of that has to be considered, but it really is about where do we find the most control? Because I really believe that in moving forward through everything that's happening in our world right now, what we're seeing out on the greater world stage, all of those things, we can't approach life anymore from that same state of consciousness that created the despair of the reality around us. We have to look at being or moving into a place of more of a divine empowerment so that we can begin to dissolve what are those old beliefs, the habits, the energetic blocks from that, so that we can resonate and we can live life not just from a higher state of being, but let's say an up-leveled experience of life as well, in what is more abundant, what is more loving, what is more compassionate, what is more peaceful, because that's who we are at our most divine state. That's from that empowered state when we're connected to who we are, when we are completely aligned with our higher self, our God, our source, our power. When we are completely in that, now we're in a place where we are co-creating from a place that takes what has been creating from a suffering state, which is again where we all start this journey at. We all start there. None of us jumps in from this true empowered state. We've got to go through our lessons. We've got to unravel. We've got to go through the depths of our despair. But we get into the state now where we can begin to choose for our lives from an aligned place inside of us, from the one that says, no, I'm good. I'm attracting opportunities. I am loved. I am everything I've ever been praying for. I am already worthy. I've got this. This is creating from a place of absolute certainty and letting go of everything that is created, the resistance within the mind, the resistance within the body, the resistance within the emotional field, the resistance within the energetic field that has continued to attract, what has been the suffering up until this point. So it's really where we become this magnet, and where we could say the manifestation of life that we've been praying for begins to take place for us. It doesn't come, we don't magnetize life. Let me back this up. We magnetize life from wherever we are. Excuse me. We magnetize life from wherever we are in our current state, which means that when we are working affirmations, as an example, from our wounded state, they have power, but they don't hold true power. They're not coming from a true empowered state as we're working them. They have a low frequency, which means there's a low magnetism to them, and we're only going to continue to attract low life experiences, people experiences, events in our life. So what we need to do is to unravel everything, move, attend to our wounds, attend to our suffering, remember, but we're not broken. So we don't always have to be in a state of fixing something inside of ourselves. I think this is where too, when we look at this idea of a healing journey, we're approaching healing as if there's always something to constantly fix. Now, also, don't get me wrong, there's going to be always something for us to shift and heal inside of us, something that is looking for, we're being invited to greater awareness, a greater understanding of who we are. So all of those experiences are contributing to that, but fixing ourselves is not what we're here for. Fixing ourselves we're not broken. So we're not looking to fix, we're looking to shift. We're looking to move through the energetic densities, the habits, the old belief systems. We're looking to unravel so we can become more participatory in what's happening in our life from an elevated state of being inside of us, not from the wounded state. So we create from the wounded, but we only attract from, we could say, and we can manifest for our lives, but it's limited. It's limited in what we experience. It's limited in maybe even the time period that we get to enjoy it. Like it's like those fleeting moments of happiness, all of those things. It comes in, it's like, oh, there it is, I've got it, and oh, it's gone. It seems like it slips right from under our hands. And so that can feel very defeating as well. So we look at, okay, instead we want to move into not just an elevated state, but we want to sustain that. We want to move into understanding our true healing, our true power, our true transformation comes from this state of divine empowerment embodied. So this really means that you begin attracting completely different experiences with life, right? Because now you're no longer limited. You're no longer limited to this individual scope of transformation and this work I have to do. It's this place that goes, yeah, there's always something I need to shift and heal inside of me, but it's no longer creating it from and having to experience it from this state of the suffering, which means that now we're no longer limited to individual transformation. And what I mean by here is now that from this place of true empowerment, that now it's radiating, now it's creating ripples through our relationships, our communities, through the collective consciousness as well. And so when we commit to daily practices about finding our alignment, daily, even sometimes moment to moment, under choices that bring us into that alignment, that's where again where our light really is contributing now. That's where it's not just about awakening for within the world, it's about allowing this divine consciousness, this empowerment to be the state of the world instead. So we're no longer participating in the awakening. Awakening's happening anyway, but we want to look at how can we bring in what is a more let's call it a higher level of experience of life and greater. And when we have a higher experience of life, it means that we have literally more light in our field. And the more light that we bring in, the more light that there is, the more that there is. I mean, that's really what is not just in terms of this awakening or supporting the awakening. It's instead shifting to say, we've got this. We are light. We are love. We are that we've been praying to. That which seems to be external and unreachable is what's in ourself. So it really begins to shift and change everything about our lives. So when we look at this now, I want to just before I go here, I want to say, how do we do this? How do we look at moving into this more embodied, true, empowered state? So it's not about what you're doing, but it's about you're giving your chance to be. Giving your chance to really be connected, to be in your breath, to be in your body, to be conscientious in the moment to moment. Before I take you through, I have a really simple daily ritual that I want to share with you here before I wrap up. But before I go, I just want to share this with you, that our reality shifts from in a blink of an eye, from moment to moment to moment. We are never in the same state of consciousness, the same energetic frequency, or the same experience of life. Okay, that's how quickly it happens. And so even though it seems like, oh, time is linear and this is going on forever and but no, it's like all of these snapshots that are happening that are creating this story that we're living and experiencing. So those snapshots, we could say, are the moment. And what we're doing sometimes in the moment can completely change the storyline and completely change what we're experiencing in our life. It can completely change what can become possible, but we've got to grab hold of those moments. So it's about the daily choices, but it's also sometimes in the moment to moment. Are we allowing ourselves to fall into the wounded state and be in the low identity of self? Or do we notice that we're feeling certain things, we're going about it, we maybe feel hopeless, we feel defeated, we feel this feels impossible. The ego will convince us of all kinds of things, and we can believe it and we can stay there. Or in that moment, we can say, whoa, hang on. What if I can experience this differently? Maybe I need to take back my power. I need to take back my power. And so instead of the ego and reality having the power, even in that decision to take back the power, the energy already begins to shift. You already put yourself into a new state of consciousness. You already move, right? Do you understand when I say the flashes from moment to moment, how quickly our life can begin to shift and change around us? Even though maybe we could say the full manifestation might not be realized right away, but it's in those moments that our greatest power is. Okay. So when we look at this, so we understand. So, I think here too, when I talk about how it shifts in and out, which means we go from a state in our own, let's call it our own evolution, within our own psychic field, within our own psyche. We can even say that, where we are going from connection to the higher self to the little one, to the higher self to the little one, to the higher self to the little one. And it's a series of all of these things. So we want to, in those moments, we're going to grab onto, the higher self, and we want to sustain that, right? But we've got to become practiced at it. That too has to be a choice that we're making. And I want to tell you, this choice literally takes, like, I don't care what we have going on in our lives, what your schedule looks like. I know what my schedule looks like. It's crazy. It's busy. There's a lot of demand. There's a lot of things that I'm, responsible for and need to make sure I'm taking care of. And I've got to carve out time for space for myself, for my family, for, living life as I know it as well. So we all have very busy lives. And I want to say here too, I think in some way our ego loves the idea of a busy life, right? Because if it keeps us busy, then we're too busy to engage with the very processes and practices that really are going to bring about our greatest reward in life. Because the ego, under any condition, is always afraid. It's a little scaredy cat. It doesn't, it's going, I just don't know. I just don't want to. I don't think it's safe, right? But our ego needs to know it's safe. That's the number one thing. So we want to look at we want to catch those moments. We want to catch it. We also want to look at what we can consciously do every single day in order to bring yourself into this. So I'm going to take you through this little routine and ritual here right now. So first off, again, I want to just say everything. When we look at this state of empowered worthiness, when we look at what is our true divine empowerment, when we look at this, I want to say, oh my gosh, this connection to the all that is, when we look at that, we have to understand that, one, it comes first through our self-love. And I'm not here, again, I mean, we all know the importance of self-love, but do you really love yourself? Like, can you look yourself in the mirror? Because this is the first thing, my friends. Can you really look yourself in the mirror and say, oh my God, I love myself so much. I am obsessed with who I am. I love this whole part of me, this body, this mind, this life of mine. Are you really in love with you? Are you truly in love with you? Because if you're truly in love with yourself, you're not going to stand in the mirror and criticize yourself. You're not going to notice the aging lines. You're not going to notice the maybe the imperfection within the skin. You're not going to notice the gray hair. If you're really, truly in love with yourself, you're just going to be like, wow, I am so exquisite. Can you love yourself to that depth? Because that's honestly what true empowerment is all about. We have to be able to get into a place where we can love ourselves unapologetically. Okay. So again, what you're doing in front of the mirror really matters. What you're saying to yourself, this is again why this work, this healing journey is such an important part of it, because it shifts us out of what has been that low self, the low identity, that little one who's been victimized and who feels helpless, and brings us into this connection, as I said, of the more intentional self, the one that knows they are worthy and deserving of so much more. But we've got to love ourselves into that place too. Okay. So it all comes down to love. I think, you might have heard this from out there. It's just like, it's all about love. It's all about love. Yes, it is. And yes, we need to love each other, and we can only love each other to the scope of that which we love ourselves. So how deeply in love are you with yourself? That's really what is the key component in all of this. Okay. So the next we need to, because this ego, that little one, as I said, just wants to be safe. And so we have to regulate our nervous system. We have to ground and settle our nervous system first. So when you close your eyes, I want you just to find your breath, this awareness to your breath. It is to inhale deeply, exhale deeply, let your lungs really, take in fully, but really more from the belly. Fill up the belly and push it out as you breathe in. As you exhale, let it push back as far as it can. Get your belly involved here. This deep breath work. I'm just an advocate for deep breath work. And so this is what's going to help to settle the nervous system. This is going to begin to first release tension from the body. When you're breathing consciously, you're allowing yourself to release the tension. You're creating a semblance of peaceful order inside of yourself. And that calm is what begins to regulate the nervous system. So it moves us out of fear or flight or the busyness of life and puts us into presence. It's such an important, I'm going to tell you, sweet friends, even if this is all you did, this is going to dramatically change your life. Like truly it will. So bringing yourself into presence. But from there, let's go deeper. From there, as you're sitting in that state of deep connection and breath and feeling that state of presence, imagine roots extending down. As you breathe down, let yourself ground with the earth. That grounding, that anchoring, that sense of nurturing energy from Mother Earth really helps us to feel more stable, more calm, more held, more and again the nervous system shifts, and it moves us into a state of relaxation. So we're moved out of fight or flight and into relaxation. That's number one. We can't access our true power, our divine essence, our higher self, or be able to even work from higher evolved state of consciousness when our nervous system is rattled. It's never going to happen. So start that first. And then it's from that heart space that you can begin to visualize, begin to visualize your this beautiful life around you. You might imagine green grass and butterflies and a choir of angels, whatever it is for you. You just want to bring yourself into this state where you're beginning to feel and experience what is more love, more energy of love, more energy of that peace. And you want to breathe that in. And as you're inhaling, inhale what is golden light, which is pure potential. You want to breathe that in. And you want to just say to yourself, I'm safe. I am loved. I am supported. I am, because we want to bring ourselves into the proclamation of our truth. Okay, our truth, not based on what happened to us, but the truth of who we are, that divine one inside of us. So we do that by igniting the I am. And then from there, you can, just simply breathe and just say, I'm open to divine guidance. I'm open to unconditional love. I am the divine expression of love and light. I am receptive to what's in my highest good. Whatever it is, you just want to bring yourself into that state. This is where affirmations become super potent and powerful. Right? Because we move into the state of what is prayerfulness through them, and where it says, I am open to the divine wisdom and love. I'm welcome healing and peace and alignment. I am safe and protected and supported on my journey. And as you're saying those things, that divine energy is beginning to spark and ignite within your energy field. It's now beginning to flow around you and into you, which begins to ignite and expand your whole entire being. Every cell, every facet of your energetic field starts to respond within these new energies. It's just a quick and subtle shift, and you can feel it. You can really feel it. And then you want to continue with those I am. I am aligned with my higher self. I am aligned with my highest truth. I am no longer contained within suffering. I am free. Whatever it is, you just want to make sure that you are reciting here. And again, through this time, as you're activating those I ams and you're sitting in that heart space, you just simply ask, you just say, please, whatever is stopping and blocking me of really being in my true empowered state, of experiencing life in the way that I've been praying for, whatever is blocking and stopping my greatest manifestations, or whatever blocking or stopping my ability to know and be fully in my worthiness, that I am worthy at the deepest level, whatever that is, I'd asking for it to be released and dissolved. Any fear, any doubt, any inherited karma, anything that no longer serves with me, out, 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 out. You have the power to alchemize this. You have the power in that state to begin to really shift how you're feeling and what you're magnetizing in your life in one simple little way, but more importantly, through this affirmative way of being. In those 2 or 3 minutes every day, you are affirming the embodiment of your divine self. You are inviting your higher self to be present, active in within you, within your energy field, within your life. And so from there, you can begin to make decisions and choices from a state of being more intentional, conscious, more elevated in, not just elevated in choices, but elevated in the energy that you are expressing into the universe that sit behind everything that you're looking to create in your life. And so this is where, again, it becomes a practice. It becomes something that we need to consciously choose to do, not because we're suffering, but to consciously do because we inevitably are becoming more conscious co-creators in our lives. That we are saying that whatever wounds, whatever pain, whatever suffering, whatever has been stopping and blocking my ability to truly love myself at the deepest level, that needs to be gone. This is no long it's no longer we're saying to the universe, it's no longer tolerated. It's no longer a part of my experience. It's no longer how I want to participate in my life. And that really begins to shift and change things up. So you can just feel it release. You can feel it. You can maybe envision the release, whatever it is. And then when it's over, you just, and in gratitude, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Amen, amen, amen. Oh my gosh, I just love it. So this is really, again, it's a sacred practice. It is something where we are consciously choosing our inner alignment so that we can reconnect, so that we can heal. And from that place, you can heal so much. This, from that place of centeredness and in that space, you can just simply say, ask for all of the inherited conditioning, all the karmic implications that are sitting within me that are causing me to feel less than worthy, that are keeping me stuck in fear, that are activating or impede or causing me to feel more insecure, whatever that is. That's no longer my truth. And so you begin to activate, you call forward the divine essence, you begin to actualize life from a more empowered state. That's true empowerment, sweet friends. That's what it's about. And this is authentic power, and it's not something to be acquired. It is your birthright. It is eternal. You are the limitless source. That limitless source shines through you. And so your practice, if anything, becomes cultivating that connection every single day. Every single day. And you're going to see from that heart space, from that intentional self for your life, everything's going to begin to reflect differently. Things are going to begin to happen, not from the outside world, and all of a sudden you're so lucky, but from a place where you can go, yeah, I did this. I manifested this. I created this. I am so in love with myself. I am so, I am no longer who I believe myself to be. I am so much more. And you're no longer in a state of believing you're who you've always been either, because that self is changing constantly. That self is ever evolving, ever changing. Identity, soul, identity, soul, identity, soul. So we've got to catch those soulful moments, and we've got to participate in aligning there. And you're going to see, sweet friends, from there, so much changes, so much. So again, as I come away from this, love yourself. This is an undertaking of self-love that is so radical, so unconditional. That is the foundation for it. And in doing so, your energy elevates and your perception of life transforms, reality shifts. And from that true empowered state, that state of being from inside of you, everything flows. Everything's rooted in divine love. Everything's expressed outwardly with grace, with that authentic resilience, with this unwavering trust that you have a higher purpose. that you are that higher purpose, but it does require you. It requires your commitment and your willingness to heal, to love, to rise up above and moment by moment to find your alignment, because that's where, again, that's how we cultivate a better world. That's how we create a wave of consciousness that shifts all of us towards wholeness, towards peace. It's about embracing and being in that sacred power, that true scope of our light, our power and authority. Okay. So I love you. Thank you so much for being here. Remember, you're not broken. You're not flawed. You are the divine expression of life itself, of love itself, deserving of that unconditional love, of the boundless aspects of life from where your true empowerment lies. And all you need to do is to understand it's all inside of you. It's all inside of you. All right, sweet friends, thank you so much for tuning in. If there was something in this episode that really resonated, that really lit you up, that you feel would be helpful for a friend or someone else you know on their healing journey, that would really help and support them on their way through, I ask you to share, to comment, and thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. And I will be back here next week, same time. God